rather drink muddy water than sleep in a hollow log. Yes, I would.
I'd rather drink muddy water, sleep in a hollow log, than to be in Atlanta, treated like a dirty dog. T-Bone, Texas, T-Bone, Tennessee. Oh yeah. T-Bone, Texas, T-Bone, Tennessee. T-Bone, that gal America to me. Yodelay, yodelay, yodelay.
Good morning. Welcome to the celebration of life for Amy Louise Barrett. We're going to begin the service with a beautiful video tribute that Eric has put together explaining her life. So enjoy. We are glad that you could be here with us today. We have been missing Amy so much these last months and looking forward to celebrating the beautiful life and legacy that she left of love, especially in her family. We're blessed that you're here, and we hope that you receive some comfort and closure from being here today and celebrating this life. I think of Amy no longer as limited by time or space or form, but I think of her as this living soul continuing on in her next beautiful experience of living. Let us pray. Indwelling Spirit, we acknowledge your presence here with us today as we meet to celebrate this beautiful life of our beloved Amy. We're so grateful we had this opportunity to be part of her life because she touched our hearts deeply. We give thanks that Spirit is now moving through all who are gathered here as the activity of love. We know it is this love that sustains us, that peace that comforts us, and the power that strengthens us. This love helps us to remember that there is no separation between us and the love of God ever. We bless this celebration of life today, and we affirm that this gathering may bring to you a sense for your comfort and your grief. We pray this in the name and through the power of Jesus the Christ, and so it is. Amen.
Abide with me, fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless soul, abide with me. Swift to its close, ebbs out life's little day. Earth's joys grow dim, its glories pass away. Change and decay, all around I see.
Amy made her transition in the mid-afternoon of October 13th, 2020, at the age of 55 from metastatic breast cancer. She was born May the 8th, 1965 in Delaware, Ohio, and was raised in Emory, Virginia by Dr. Maurice Luker Jr. and Ann Johnson Luker, and was the younger sister of Maurice Starr Luker III and partner Ishmael. Her mother, Anne, passed away in 1973, and subsequently Amy was raised in Abington, Virginia by her stepmother, Jean Nar Luker, and became the older sister to a stepbrother, Mark Antony Miller, and the granddaughter of Harry and Mary Nar of Sarasota, Florida. Her father passed away in 2019. Amy is also survived by two aunts, Jean Luker of Atlanta, Georgia, and Andrea Cook, husband Frank of the Villages, Florida, as well as numerous cousins. In her early years, Amy explored the campus of Emory and Henry College, where her father taught religion. She played the violin at Emory Chamber Orchestra, attended Emory United Methodist Church, and studied piano at Emory and Brevard Music Camp in North Carolina in the summers. With an entrepreneurial spirit, Amy sold hundreds of boxes of Girl Scout cookies and delivered newspapers. I certainly understand the Girl Scout cookie thing. I don't think I ever sold hundreds, but good.
That was her number two on newspaper route. And the cookies.
Oh, and the cookies. She must have been an excellent salesperson to sell that many Girl Scout cookies. Her passion
She was competitive.
Yeah. Her passion in high school was running, and she made the all-regional cross-country team and won several mile and 2-mile races. Always looking forward to the next adventure, Amy skipped her senior year of high school and attended Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, where she majored in political science and minored in French, and met her first husband, Lamar Kevin Cloud, who passed away in 2019. After college and a summer in Paris, she jumped into working in advertising and buying at Macy's department stores in Atlanta, Georgia. After Macy's bankruptcy, she obtained a CPA and a master's in public accounting from the University of Texas at Austin, my alma mater, and worked as an auditor for the PricewaterhouseCoopers, the University of Texas System Administration, as the chief auditor for the Teachers Retirement System of Texas, which is where she retired. Her love of Austin was very deep, and she took full advantage of attending the live music shows, some of which you heard, some of the music before, dancing under the stars, practicing and studying yoga, walking her dogs in the park, eating that Texas barbecue, camping in the Texas Hill Country, and in Austin, then she met her second husband, Eric Jason Barrett, and his 3 beautiful children, Vanessa, husband Jose, Ryan, wife Jennifer, and Stephen, partner Sarah. She ultimately became the bonus grandmother to these lovely 4 grandchildren, Olivia, Andrew, Rowan, and Daphne. After retiring, Amy and Eric and their 2 dogs, Brody and Clancy, moved to the Florida Gulf Coast, hip hip hooray, to be near family and the beach, where she became an active member of Unity Church of Peace in Northport. She took part in classes and book studies. She volunteered for the finance committee. She helped out with the audits. She planned an entire pilgrimage to Unity Village that got canceled when the pandemic happened in March 2020. She was such a trooper and such a game player. She modeled clothes for this annual fundraiser that Cindy is part of, the Relay for Life. She did a clothing model job for the Tea for a Cure the last year that it was held. She also pursued her passion for yoga philosophy. She read numerous books, attended the Rays spring training baseball games, and received cutting-edge cancer treatment from Moffitt Cancer Center. At the end of August last year, Amy and Eric participated in a birthday parade in front of my home. Now, mind you, this is just a couple of months before she made her transition, and she was already weak, but she mustered up that energy to come and be a part of my birthday celebration. So giving and kind. But that's who Amy is, the giving her all to the very end, caring for others and bringing her light into the world. She is incredibly missed, and we were incredibly blessed to be a part of her life, even though it was just for a little glimmer of time.
Open my eyes, Lord. Help me to see your face. Open my eyes, Lord. Help me to see. Open my ears, Lord. Help me to hear your voice. Open my ears, Lord. Help me to hear. And the first shall be last, and our eyes are open, and we'll hear like never before. And we'll speak in new ways, and we'll see God's face in places we've never known. Open my heart, Lord. Help me to love like you. Open my heart, Lord. Help me to love. I live within you. Deep in your heart, oh love, I live within you. Rest now in me.
Now we're going to begin the personal sharing where the family and the friends come up. And so we'd like to start with Kathy, Amy's best friend from Austin.
Little caught off guard that I'm the first up. That's okay. Thank you, Eric. I am honored to be here today. I'm honored to be here, a part of this church that I know was a great home for Amy. I met Amy on the courts of the Caswell Tennis Center in Austin, Texas, back in 1999. I was brand new to the city. She loved Austin, as you heard Reverend Donna say, and she graciously decided to show me around her city with me. So we quickly bonded over tennis, over music, over Austin. Before long, we found ourselves hanging out several nights a week, frequenting Austin's legendary and not so legendary music venues. I know these names won't mean a lot to you, but they were part of our history together, so I'm going to name them. They're Antone's, Stubbs, La Zona Rosa, the Saxon Pub, the Continental Club, the Broken Spoke, the Cactus Cafe, Egos, Club de Ville, and many others. Some of the musicians we saw were big names that are known to most folks here. Musicians like Lyle Lovett, John Mayer, Kid Rock, Willie Nelson. But more often, we soaked in the sounds of the working musicians that gave Austin the moniker of the live music capital of the world. Bob Schneider, Guy Forsyth, Lisa Tingle, Funky London, Tony Price, Patty Griffin, The Resentments, Ian Moore, Slade Cleaves. Asleep at the Wheel, Dale Watson. The Derailers, Casey Chambers, and one of Amy's personal favorites, Vallejo. The song Beautiful Mind that the video presentation was playing to was from Vallejo. As time went on, we discovered more things in common. We each had 2 brothers. We'd both been pretty straight arrows growing up. We had demanding jobs and we worked hard, but we also liked to play hard. We liked expensive champagne and cheap beer. We shared the same shoe size and at times even shared the same shoes. We both found humor in a lot of the same stories and situations. Amy could make me laugh like almost anyone, like no one I've ever known. As much as we had in common, we had other things that distinguished us from one another. We grew up in different parts of the country. Amy had lost her birth mother when she was young. She'd been divorced. We couldn't agree on movies we both wanted to see, even if there was a group of bears chasing us into the theater. I think it took us until 2018 when we saw Bohemian Rhapsody that we both agreed on a film. Of course, it was a movie about music. I came to love Amy like the sister I never had. But it wasn't just because she was a hell of a lot of fun. Her list of personal qualities was a long and admirable one. Amy had a remarkable spirit of adventure and a zest for life. She was bold and fearless, perhaps never more so than when she dragged me to Santa Monica Airport's famous restaurant, Typhoon. While the restaurant is now shuttered, for 25 years, Typhoon was known for featured menu items such as scorpion toast and stir-fried crickets. And she was going to take me there. Anyone who knew Amy also knew she was incredibly thoughtful. Some of the most meaningful gifts I've ever received came from her. She was equally generous with her time and her advice. Amy was also an insanely positive person. After her diagnosis, I think she probably spent more time propping up my spirits than I ever did to prop up hers. That's the hallmark of a great friend, but it's far from her only one. A good friend will take you for a ride in her brand new Porsche sports car. A great friend will let you drive her brand new Porsche sports car. Amy was a great friend. A good friend will tell you things that you want to hear. A great friend will tell you things you need to hear. Amy was a great friend. A good friend will throw you a baby shower. A great friend will be your birthing coach. Amy was a great friend, but she also threw me a baby shower and a bachelorette party. Yes, in that order. A good friend will compliment you when you wear a cute top. A great friend will make you feel like your smartest, funniest, best self every moment you spend with them. Amy was a great friend. In English, we often say that we miss someone or I miss you. In a book I read recently, it contained a French quote, which I promise I'm going to mispronounce here because I don't speak French, which says, "Tu me manques." It means, you are missing from me. That's how I felt this past year. Amy, you are missing from me. And I also miss you, because I know everyone here today does. I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to remember you, to remember your life, and as sad as it is, to say farewell. Rest in peace.
Aspen, would you like to be next?
Amy was a blessing, or she is a blessing. She has taught so many people about passion, reverence for life, joy, willingness to be there for you in your darkest hour, in your greatest hour. I got to know Amy when Eric and they came the second time because they were so enjoying Unity Church. And I came right up to them And I just knew her and I were going to be friends, and we were. She was a lighthouse of love. And we just bonded so quickly because of her passion and zeal for life. We always enjoyed going to book clubs together, study groups together. She was so passionate, wanting to learn and to experience joy even deeper, at a deeper level, and peace, to reconcile what was happening to her, and to have that inner strength, to have that passion to bring it forth to other people. It was so beautiful to have, to celebrate her birthday, that when we first got to know each other, the four of us, my husband and Eric and I and Amy, we went to the comedy club. And to this day, before she passed, we were just laughing about that comedy club, some of the stunts that he said. It was so funny, and it was just a reference to just say, we still joy, we have passion in our lives. I keep saying passion because that's what she taught me, was passion for life, and to give up old beliefs and to live more in the now, because that's what she chose to do, is live here now. So I really appreciate that and felt so blessed to have her in my life. She was a true friend, and she was so helpful to me when my husband was diagnosed with cancer, and she was there for me. We were always in tune with one another. In fact, our initials are the same. And my middle initial is L, which also is Louise. So that I thought that was kind of interesting, a confirmation that we were meant to be sisters. Yes. And I was, though we kind of drifted apart a little bit because of the pandemic, and I know she was, really struggling with the disease and knowing that her time was coming. And we, before all the pandemic, we would go to lunch. Her favorite place was going to Finn's and having sushi. She loved sushi. Also the Mexican restaurant. She had to have her margarita. She loved her margaritas. And so I really cherish those times. And I still go there and celebrate her. I was fortunate enough to be with Amy the day before she passed. That morning, I woke up and I just truly felt in my heart, if I don't see Amy now, I won't see her. So I called Eric up, and I came over there, and we were there. I was there about 3 hours or whatever, how long, and we laughed and we kind of cried, and it was just a very surreal kind of time. She knew, we all knew, that she didn't have much more time, but she was there for us too, to support us and our moving on, and her just gently transitioning. So I felt so grateful to spend those last moments with her. And I just love her dearly. And she's always in my heart.
Thank you, Esme. So sweet. Oh, thank you so much. Knocked it off. Pam, how about you come and talk about the book club? This is this 3-year ongoing book club that started with our small groups. These folks love each other, huh?
Okay. I'm not a shy person, but you put me behind a podium and I get a little nervous, so I'm going to do the best I can here for Amy. She was always so poised and calm. Well, my name's Pam, and I was part of a book group, a study group, along with Carmen, who's here today, and Rima couldn't make it, and Alicia and Renee are on a trip, so they weren't able to be here today too, but it's all of us. And we decided after Eric said he was going to do this service that we wanted to say a few words, so we went up to Eric and we were going to ask him. Well, it turns out Amy had already requested that we speak, so she was already on the ball before we were. Now, I will say that she did ask that Renee speak, because Renee is a lot slower speaker, a little more professional than myself, but since Renee was going to be gone, it's up to me. So, Amy, I hope I do it well. And so Carmen is the writer in our book study group. So she gathered what was in all of our hearts, and she's written this beautiful memorial that I'm going to now read to you. One word comes to mind when we talk about Amy. That word is grace. She brought grace to our small group book study. Amy came into our group, as we all did, by divine appointment. 6 people in search of truth that along the way found it in each other. What was supposed to be a weekly discussion of someone's writing soon evolved into a deep and loving friendship for life and into eternity. When Amy first joined the group, she spoke very little about her health. She mostly spoke of her pursued path, of her search for enlightenment. She occasionally shared her extensive knowledge about spirituality, Eastern philosophy, and the Bhagavad Gita. I knew that would throw me on that one, but thank you, Eric. We listened and learned even when we didn't really understand. When the pandemic forced our meeting into Zoom, Amy continued to share her grace with us via Zoom. We all noticed how, as the world paused and kept us home, Amy's health continued to deteriorate. She didn't talk much about it. She endured numerous treatments ordered by doctors in the hope to win her battle against the illness that was trying to claim her body. With a quiet dignity, maybe learned from her studies of Eastern philosophy, she mentioned her excitement about finding out what was waiting for her on the other side of life. We tried to be excited for her, but the pain of possibly saying goodbye to her was too soon. That didn't permit us to do that. Eventually, she was told by her doctors that no treatment would stop the progress of the illness, and it would be wiser to stop all medications and just enjoy whatever time she had. She did. With the same grace that we had come to know as Amy's personality, and with the same quiet dignity she always showed, Amy stopped her medications and began to prepare for the next chapter. We couldn't see how soon that chapter would arrive. On the last weekend of her life, and while her family was arriving from Texas and other places to say goodbye, Amy chose to participate in our book study one more time. Too weak to sit up, she was propped up in bed with pillows by her husband, Eric. She didn't say much, although her sweet face and weak smile spoke loudly. At the end of the meeting, she said goodbye and told us that she loved us. We didn't know that this would be the last time we would hear her voice, and she passed away a few days later. Today, as the tears stopped and gave way to some wonderful memories, it is her grace and quiet dignity that we remember. We imagine her boldly entering into the next chapter of her life. We know that Amy will live forever in our hearts. Thank you.
Don't want to do it? Does anybody else from the family want to speak before? Okay, so then we're going to have Dar and Eric come up to the platform.
He's my wingman for this.
I think I got it on. I'm going to test it
I
and see.
decided I'm going to shake it up.
Dark.
Because I can't stand up behind the phone.
Dark. There's a power switch on.
Oh, is it on?
It is now.
Yeah. I'm deliberately losing any connection with technology the older I get. Amy would have a laugh about this. I collected 78 records when I was a kid. I have a Victrola. So I live in the past in a lot of ways that way. But so my nickname is Dar. It's short for Dayavish HaMelech, which means Darius the King, which gives you some sense of what my family was about. It's Hebrew for a Persian king who fought Alexander the Great and lost. But I'll talk about my family a little bit. But I'm also Maurice Sylvester Luker III, which also tells you something about my family. There are a lot of Maurices, a lot of Maurice Sylvesters, and then my stepmother's family is also Maurices, 3 of them, and so there are just Maurices running everywhere. But I wanted to take the time, maybe for the first and only time, that to talk about my family and where Amy was rooted. You've heard so many of the themes about her life, and I'm a writer by profession. I work at a college, but I write a lot. And I decided not to write this deliberately, so they could be more spontaneous and more conversational. But one thing I like to do is use alliteration in my writing. And so the four themes that I wanted to share with you about her early life and where she came from. And what we shared together. Sorry about that. Well, the four F's. So there's four F's: family, friends, Florida, and F sharp. That made it alliterate for me, and so I wanted to talk about those four things. I don't know how long I'm going to go, Eric, but I will go as quickly as I can.
Tell a joke at some point.
I need to tell a joke. I am not good at telling jokes at the beginning of my speeches. I'm not that kind of person. But all of these that you've heard as themes today with Amy. And as I was writing this down, I was at the Don Cesar at St. Pete yesterday writing these notes down. The last thing that came to mind is one of the things about friendship, and if her best friends have been here talking, I feel like maybe she and I were best friends. And the children here have their animals. And my father would come back from trips abroad. My father was a professor and an archaeologist. And he would go away in the summer and come back after 2 months with my mother, all tanned and having traveled to various places. And one of those trips, he brought back Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. And of course, I got the Pooh, Amy got the Piglet. And we really were Winnie the Pooh and Piglet when we were that age. My parents, I just want to tell you just a little bit about my parents, and because family was so rooted in our lives and part of us. But they met at Southern Methodist University in Texas. So, you know, it's not completely unusual that Amy ended up in Texas, but they met in the library at SMU. My father had come from Kentucky and Butchell outside of Louisville, and my mother was from Collierville, a small country town outside of Memphis, Tennessee. We're a very southern family. My father's family is German and English, and my mother's family was Scotch-Irish, and dated back to the 17th century, I think, in the United States. They trace themselves back. But my father's from kind of more urban family. His father was an accountant. So he died in 1959 from cancer, and we didn't know him, but I feel like Amy became an accountant, and it was somehow in the DNA. She inherited something from him. My grandmother was the church secretary at a very large, mainline Methodist church. On my mother's side, they were farmers. My grandfather came from a family of 13. His mother died in childbirth, and she died in the influenza epidemic of 1918. And they were itinerant farmers, and my grandmother lived in a log cabin with no electricity, no water. It was very rustic. She loved the Franklin Roosevelt because he brought electricity. But that was all very important because we were very close to them, especially after our mother died, and we spent summers with them. Amy was born after my father. Of course, my father was a professor. He was a minister. He was an archaeologist. It was a very somewhat unusual upbringing, but to have that. I mean, theology was a part of our everyday lives. We gathered in the living room and read Martin Luther. We read the Bible. I mean, we sang all of our graces. And it was terrific. But Amy was born in Delaware, Ohio, and shortly thereafter, my father was teaching there. My father got his permanent job at Emory and Henry College, and we moved there to Appalachia. I think for us, it was the most magical, wonderful place to grow up. I don't know if my father appreciated it as much as we did. He felt a little bit isolated maybe at some times, but we thought it was just terrific. We lived on the campus. We had access to everything. If we wanted to go swimming, we had an Olympic-sized swimming pool. If we wanted to go to the library, we had a college library with the librarians who knew us, and we could check out the books in our father's name and not have to return them ever. I mean, we were what were called fac brats. And there were many of us around campus, and I mean, how many kids grow up where every kid has at least one parent, maybe two, who have PhDs? And so you can imagine the conversations at dinner and the level was quite amazing. So both Amy and I were, set up to achieve intellectually. And like our parents, I think my mother was smarter than my dad, but he, in that time, he was the one who was the breadwinner. But my mom was Phi Beta Kappa and very, very smart. It was kind of the same with Amy and me. I think she was smarter than I was. She left high school and went to college. I didn't do that. I dutifully completed high school and went on to college. So we moved to Emory in 1965, and I think then it broadens to kind of community, which I would call friends. We had a very close-knit community. It was really a company town. We lived on the campus. We all went to the same Methodist church together. It was just incredible kind of coming together. And the Thursday before Amy passed away, we didn't share with the group, but we had been planning for a year for a community reunion and couldn't, because of COVID, get together, and Amy's health had gotten to the point she couldn't travel. And we had a Zoom call with some of her friends, kind of a 50th reunion of everyone who was there in 1970. And it was a wonderful and meaningful time for her and for all of us who had known each other for so long. But Amy and I would, my father ran the film series on campus, so we had no film theater. We had a film series on campus, and most of the films were in Swedish, French, German. I didn't see popular films, and neither did my sister. We saw Fellini, we saw Ingmar Bergman, and we were 6 years old. So we had no idea why that nude woman was up on the screen. But my father would say, go see this film. And we would sit in the middle of the first row with this gigantic screen and with the film, a real film projector going, and we would watch these films. And I know that changed my life about films. I'm totally jaded. I have to watch classic films. I can't. But that was part of it. And we had a dog named Columbo. I wanted to mention that because she loved dogs, and the dog talked, by the way. It talked to us and talked to everything. My mom would take us on nature walks. Our mother was totally enamored by Appalachia, and she wanted to know everything about it. She read the Foxfire books. She bought albums of Gene Ritchie and studied dulcimer and all of this was kind of the beginning of our roots of music. And we went to a school that dated from the 1920s down the road. But it was a sad kind of ending in Emory when my mother died. And she had the same cancer that Amy passed away from. It turns out that all of us have the BRCA gene mutation, including myself. That means that our bodies are unable to fight cancer in the same way, and it particularly impacts women. But when my father told us that my mother had passed, Amy was there for me. I couldn't take it. You know what a pillar she was, and even at such a young age, and not really comprehending herself what was going on, she was there for me, and we were there for each other. We later moved to Abingdon, but I won't talk too much about Abingdon, although we enjoyed working at the Barrett Theater, which is a state theater in Virginia, and Amy eventually in college worked at Shoney's, and I worked at the Martha Washington Inn in the summers. And Abingdon also was an important part. And also, connecting more to the music and the culture of Appalachia. Abingdon's a beautiful town, about 10 miles from Emory. I wanted to talk thirdly about Florida, which kind of is a catch-all for our relationships with our grandparents in the summer. So my father would go away and would take our mother away. It was a little unusual, and it was a little difficult because they would go away for at least 2 months, and they would go to dig in Israel and go to Europe, and so we'd be left with our grandparents, mostly in Ohio, and then Collierville with my mother's parents, and then with my grandmother here in Florida. And we got to know our cousins very well, and we would stay in Sarasota. My grandmother had a wonderful house on Longboat Key, and we were just really spoiled in that way. So that was our connection, and that's why she loved Florida so much, is those times we would spend. The earliest memory I have is us on the beach during Hurricane Camille in 1969. The waves are crashing. My sister and I are foolishly too close to the water, and the wave comes over. I get knocked down by a wave, and we evacuated. My grandmother's house was flooded on Longboat Key. And of course, that's why my father moved here. We just love Florida. It's really our second home. My grandmother moved here in 1965, so we've been coming our whole lives. And finally, F sharp. I like F sharp because I was not a great pianist. F sharp was just totally intimidating as a key in my piano lessons. But I mentioned that at Emory and Henry, we had so many incredible resources, including music. Not only we had the extraordinary context of Appalachian music and country music, and the South is permeated by storytelling, and storytelling through music, and Amy and I both absorbed that. You couldn't help but absorb it. But then on the campus, we had classical music, we had choir. We were in the chamber orchestra. I played viola. My sister played violin. I don't think I was very good. I'm sure I wasn't very good. But I got to do it. And our orchestra leader had played with Toscanini and Igor Stravinsky. And he would tell us those stories about them. And our piano teacher was his wife. And looking back, it's just extraordinary. And then our choir at church was the college choir, led by the college music director, they toured, went to Italy and toured Italy. I mean, this was just an incredible immersion in music. But music was so much part of our family. We sang our graces. My parents would set up the record player, because it was a record player, and play albums that they had, and there were often Broadway show tunes. Amy didn't get the show tune thing as much as I did, but we did listen a lot to Sound of Music. And of course, not the movie version, but the Broadway version. And on the bus, then, we would write down the lyrics for Edelweiss for everybody, and then we would get everybody in the bus to sing Edelweiss. And, you know, we never had any fights on the bus. Other people talk about the horrible bus rides. We were singing on the bus because we sang in the car. My parents had song albums in the glove box, and we would sing spirituals or songs. You know, we were always singing because Methodists sing. That's why I had to sing along with the music today. I was thinking, "Oh, for 1,000 tongues to sing," that's the hymn #1 in the Methodist hymn book. Just music was constantly not only around us, but part of us. And the idea was to be participatory in music, not just to be a passive listener or audience member, but actually engage the music. It was so important as a Methodist and as part of our family. Well, I'd like to wrap up with Amy's name. So I talked about my name, but it's about Amy. We used to play a card game called Authors. And I don't know if you know about Authors cards. There's very few female authors in the authors deck, unfortunately. But of course, her favorite author was Louisa May Alcott. And I don't know if she'd like the name Louise. It was her great-grandmother's name. And so she did also get a family name. So we didn't call her Louise all that much, but in teasing her, I suppose.
No, she did not like you.
Now she can't argue back now. But I wanted to embarrass her for the last time as a brother, which is one of my jobs as an older brother, is to embarrass your sister, about Amy. So she's named for a song, and it's a Broadway song. And I don't know if my father saw the Broadway show or, because he lived near New York at the time, so he saw a lot of Broadway shows, but he may have just seen the movie, and I don't know, or he may have just seen it on television. But I wanted to play the song for you that Amy is named for. It's a beautiful song. It's performed wonderfully by the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz, Ray Bolger. It's from a musical called Where's Charlie? It was a huge hit on Broadway. It brought the house down every night. It played for months, and maybe years, with Ray Bolger. And it's a sing-along. So we're going to play it, him singing it, Once in Love with Amy. And if you want to sing along when he gets to that point, please sing along that we're always in love with Amy.
Come on, Marshall.
No, Ray. No, never, never, never. I just can't do it. Never, never, no.
Good, you're weakening.
You know something, Ray? I might weaken if you promise to do me a favor.
Show me the mountain and I'll climb it. Show me the river and I'll swim it. Show me the fire. I'll report it.
No, seriously, Ray. Will you do me a favor?
Well, I'd do anything for you, Martha.
Would you please sing Amy for me?
Oh, no. Martha, you don't want me to do that again, do you?
I do.
Oh, Martha, really?
No, really, you know, because every time I hear it, it always sounds like the first time, Ray. Please, for Maggie.
Well, for you, I'll do anything, sweetheart.
Bless you, sweetheart. Good luck.
Once in love with Amy. Always in love with Amy. Ever and ever fascinated by her. Set your heart afire to stay. Once you're kissed by Amy. Tear up your lips, it's Amy. Fly her with bonbons, poetry and flowers. Moon a million hours away. You might be quite the fickle-hearted rogue, so careless and bold, who loves a girl and later thinks it all, then just quit cold. I've been once in love with Amy, always in love with Amy. Ever and ever, sweetly you'll romance. Trouble is, the answer will be that Amy'd rather stay in love with me. I'm so happy. I want everybody to sing. Once in love with Amy, always in love with Amy, and once in love with Amy, always in love with Amy, always in love with Amy, ever and ever fascinated by her, ever and ever fascinated by her. Set your heart afire, you said. Set your heart afire. Once you're kissed by Amy, once you're kissed by Amy, get up your list of Amy. Tear up your list. It's a fire with bonbons, poetry and slush. What's the big noise? I don't know. I don't care either.
He's done it 1,000 times and then he forgets it.
I don't care about anything. I'm happy that you're learning about it.
I thought he would sing that song. He sang it with
Always in love with Amy. Always in love with Amy. Ever and ever sweetly you romance her. Ever and ever sweetly you double in the answer. Ha ha ha. Double in the answer for me. Ha ha ha. And Amy is in love with me.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to stay up with you. I just want to say a few words before we leave here. Thank you for all for coming. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Amy would be touched. Kathy, thank you for coming all the way. Amy thought so highly of her. You know, I don't know if you know this, but from your little daughter, I got my nickname from Amy. So about a year after she was born, and she was starting to talk, we went over to your house, and either you or Amy was trying to get her to say my name. Now, here's Eric, and the best Lily could do was say Eck. And so from that day forward, I've always been Amy's Eck. But I got back at her because Amy was extremely stubborn, and she was a Taurus, and she could dig her heels in better than anyone, and so what I would do oftentimes when we'd get into a discussion, and they were never heated arguments or anything, I called them enhanced discussions. I just turn and say, "Well, how's my little Taurus doing?" So yeah. But Aspen, thank you so much. Aspen and Amy became really good friends, and I became friends with you and Tim. She always, this last year, she's been calling me and seeing how I was doing and everything like that. And you don't know what those calls meant to me. It raised my spirits and everything like that. And Pam, you know, I never got to join the Cool Kids Club, that small book club and everything like that. Yes, I would, and I actually had a problem with this. So when we moved down here, I had my man cave, which was my office, and she had her she shed, and I made the fatal mistake at one time saying, "Oh yeah, honey, you can put your computer in my office too, right?" Thinking that okay, she's going to go off to her groups and everything, and I still have my time on the computer. Well, when the pandemic hit, she was on Zoom all the time, and I got locked out of my office. And so finally, I decided I was going to come in and do things and then that's why you'd see me going back and forth on there, everything. Brother Dar, we've known each other a long time. The first time I heard about him, really, I hadn't seen him yet, but about 2 or 3 months into dating, Amy decided it's time you go see Mom and Dad in Virginia. And we went, and he was rather imposing, your father. But I was, I was going to be the good potential son-in-law, and I asked Amy about him, so I was going to bring a gift, and what do you bring a professor? Old Testament. I went to Barnes & Noble, and I found this really good copy book on European medieval cathedrals. It's pretty thick. And I wrapped it up, put it in my suitcase, and I brought it. They picked us up at the Bristol airport, or Tri-Cities airport, went in and walked into his house, and the living room was like a museum. And it was literally a museum. There was this glass thing, and all these artifacts from Israel and everything. And on his ottoman in front, where he's sitting, was the book I brought. So I had to say to him, Maurice, I'm going to have to get something else because this is the book. Difference was he bought his used and mine was brand new. So anyway, after the trip, evidently Dar talked to the parents and everything, and then Dar wrote Amy, said, "Mom and Dad really like Eric. What's wrong with him?" But so he's painting this picture of this family, highly educated family, which it was, and everything like that. But it had its moments. I'll never forget. Amy and I bought I'm going to tell this story. Amy and I bought a second home on Anna Marie Island, and he would come visit us sometimes when we were there. And one time he rented a Cadillac STS, or it got upgraded, right? Yeah, it was upgraded, and we were all at the house. We were going to go visit his parents in Sarasota. It's about 45 minutes, and I'd never been in a Cadillac STS before, and I said,
Neither had I.
Right. And I said, well, let's take Dar's car. And Amy was like, no, no. And I was like, I didn't know. No. Well, I convinced her. I convinced my Taurus to do it. I can bend her every once in a while. And we got into the car, and we started going down the main road, Emerald, like 35 miles an hour. And Amy was sitting in the front next to him, and she looked, and I saw this look on her face, like disgust. And she said, Dar, what are you doing? He said, nothing. You've got the cruise control on, don't you? So he's got this little thing where he uses the cruise control even in those cities and everything. And it drove Amy nuts. And she kept saying to him, would you stop that? And he said, no. And those two started going at it. Well, we needed, then we needed gas, so we stopped to get gas. And on the dashboard it said 91 octane premium gas, right? And so Amy was like, let's get out of the car. Amy was like,
This is the apocryphal part.
Amy said to him, you're going to put in premium, right? He said, no. And Amy went into the glove compartment. She was pulling out the manual. She was like, you have to put in this. And then he came back every few hours. Did you put in premium? She said, no. Ah! But it wasn't finished. So prior to that, their stepmother had said the best way to get from Anna Maria Island to Sarasota was to take this one way. And at that point, Amy had had enough of him. And Amy said, we're just going to take this main way. And Amy said, okay, turn here, turn here. And he kept going. And he was like, no, no, here, here, here. And it went on like that. And he kept saying, and he got her really irritated, saying, but Mom says. And it was like I was watching this SNL skit of two adult children. And I was wondering, who is this person that's doing such a horrible imitation of my wife? So that's the family I moved in. I love the family. You have to understand, he was subscribing to Opera Monthly at like 7 or 8 years old or whatever. I asked him one time, and it truly was an innocent question, but he did not take it that way. I said,
I still subscribe, by the way.
I asked him one time when I first met him, I said, how can you listen to that? And he had this like look of disgust, like he was insulted and everything.
I'm just gonna, the car thing, I didn't say, I had it in my notes. My parents spent a year in Basel, Switzerland, and I was conceived there. And they came back on the Queen Mary, the ship, the Queen Mary, because they had bought a car, a VW Bug. It was the first one with real turn signals. They were very proud. It cost $1,000. It was expensive for them. But they brought that back in the Queen Mary, and that was our first car that I remember, and my sister remember. And I don't know if you remember the old VW Bugs, but in the back seat, there was behind the back seat was a luggage compartment that you could put maybe one suitcase. Well, this was perfect for Amy and me as young kids, because Amy would take the luggage compartment in behind the back seat, and she could lie down in it or be comfortable in that, and I would lie down in the back seat. And we would then wind our way from the Appalachian Mountains. There was no highway then. We would go this winding route that made us intensely car sick. So we would have to stop every once in a while for me to throw up my meal and then get back in the car. It would take us 2 days, and we would eventually get to Sarasota, Florida, in that VW Bug. But that's probably where Amy and I developed these tendencies in cars.
Well, it went beyond that. I mean, it's like little sisters have they can pretty much say anything to their big brothers, and the big brothers have to take it. And I noticed that over time.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thank you, everybody. The last thing I say, I was supposed to speak about our marriage. That was like Amy's last thing. Don't get me wrong. We had a beautiful marriage. Both of us proud. Hard for me to talk about it. All I can say is I'll sum up 15 years. Like, if you're in a relationship where that person brings out the best in you, then you have something, and we did. Thank you so much.
And now we have our peace song, and this is how we generally end our services. So we'll have our peace song and our prayer for protection. So if you'd like to stand and join us in this. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is, and I am divine. Yes, you all are. Thank you for being with us today. We're going to have a reception. Eric has provided lunch for us today. So if you'll just be seated for a moment while I take the family out, and then the rest of you can join us. Thank you again.
Ring around the collar, got that ring stuck through her nose. She works there at the Dallas Cowboys, but she's got no